close your eyes and think of that person that you really look up to that has the financial life that you want to live. Is this person solely focused on their 401k, or are they focused on building the life that they want to build today for themselves and their family? Now, this isn't to bang 401ks or retirement plans. Those things are great, but what I am saying is that can't be your sole focus for creating the financial future that you want and your retirement. It has to go beyond that. I'm Santiago. I'm a certified financial planner. I help high functioning people rethink the way they're approaching their portfolio management and how they're building their portfolio to create the life that they want to live. And after living abroad on and off for 8 years before returning back to the United States in 2023 to practice financial planning professionally, I've been building a master plan over the last 3 years to return back to living abroad part-time and have an early retirement. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I'm restructuring my housing situation, my personal portfolio, and my Workday to start living a semi-retired life before the age of 40 while living abroad. So starting with the housing situation, one of the lessons that I learned when I was living overseas part-time for 8 years, that if you're going to live overseas part-time, you still need to maintain some type of home or apartment in the United States. It just makes things much more logistically easier. And then if you're overseas for 9 months at a time, having a home or an apartment just sitting empty for 9 months creates a pure liability. So my first step in this plan is to secure a dual housing situation that makes sense. So option number one is to downsize the current property that you're living in, especially if you own a home. So I own my home and I also have a rental property, but what I want to do is downsize and take the equity out of my current home and then reinvest it. A really great strategy for doing this is doing a 1031 exchange. So for those of you that are not familiar with the 1031 exchange, what a 1031 exchange is it allows you to sell a piece of real estate and then roll it over into a different piece of real estate without paying any taxes. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that if you have a home that has equity in it, you can do a 1031 rollover into a completely passive income investment that's managed by a professional entity. A lot of investors do this when they want to downsize and roll over, and then they invest in apartment complexes that are professionally managed and just collect the passive income and still get some equity upside appreciation along the way. Situation number two is what I did previously when I was living abroad, and it's having a roommate structure that's highly incentivized on both sides. So if you have a roommate, you can split the cost 50-50 with that roommate. And by having a roommate, you have a built-in property manager that's there all the time, watching over your personal belongings, watching over your house. So if you're not there for 9 months out of the year because you're living abroad, your roommate is paying 50% of the cost that it would to live alone, but they're essentially getting to live alone by themselves, except for 3 months out of the year. On the other side of it, you still get to maintain a homestead in the United States, but you have that property manager and you're still paying 50% of what you would pay if you were living on your own, and you don't have to put all of your stuff in storage. Now, with option number one on the 1031 strategy, there is some laws around if you have debt and some intricacies around that. You want to make sure that you know all of those, but it's a great option to get that downsize and immediately create some passive income that can move you closer to living a life that's abroad. I put my early retirement plan in motion. There are two major career and portfolio shifts that I'm making personally that I'm going to share. So shift number one is that I want to start investing more into high value skills that help businesses instead of focusing on skills that help end consumers. And I'm going to explain why. AI is changing the economy and it's changing the workplace. We all know this. When you build AI tools that automate workflows and implement AI implementation into a workplace, it's the fastest way to increase your income in this new economy, because the new economy is not going to be based on how you can help an end user. It's going to be about building systems and processes that can help businesses be more efficient. And I don't care what profession that you're in. I'm in finance, you can be in law, you can be in healthcare. AI is going to be implemented in all of these businesses, especially a field like finance. Now, I personally focus a lot of my time when I'm focusing on building my skills on Claude. Claude is extremely powerful, and Claude has the ability to build enterprise systems and build systems that can be used by businesses in repeatable processes. So I want to first start educating myself more and more, and I've already been doing this on the high level implementation of AI. There's a difference between just entering random things in the chat and understanding how to build systems with AI that have a business function. Shift number 2 is that I want to take the 401k match with my employer, get the free money, and nothing more. Just stop right there. And I want to redirect all the money that would go into maximizing my 401k and take every one of those surplus dollars and reinvest it into myself, which is my skills, and reinvest it into passive income investments. Now, I will say this once again, and I say this on a lot of my videos, that using this method is not only not the most tax efficient way to build wealth, it's not the way to get the most dollars in your retirement. That isn't what this is about. And as a financial planner, I think I need to always repeat and say that, because too many times financial plans are just based on maximizing retirement dollars. But what this plan is able to do is to maximize your life and strike that balance that I always talk about. So if your goal is to work at a job for 40 years and have a giant retirement plan at the end at age 65, then that's awesome. This video isn't for you. But what I do want to do is challenge the way you think and go beyond conventional thinking and beyond conventional financial planning. And I first started noticing this when I started working with extremely successful entrepreneurs and learning how they think. So out of ignorance, when I first started investing, I wasn't maximizing my 401k, and I started investing in an outside brokerage account that wasn't a retirement account. And because I did this later on in my life, after I had been investing for a while, I had built up a nest egg. And when I was switching my career from flying drones with the government to working in financial planning, that portfolio and the fact that it was flexible and I had access to it before retirement was the backstop that encouraged me to go and pursue my dreams and switch my careers and take a huge pay cut. So this isn't about abandoning responsible investing, but what this is about is defining clear goals and objectives and creating a portfolio that makes sense to make those goals and objectives happen. Now, before we continue to the passive income section, what I want you to do is that if you're liking this video so far, go ahead, like and subscribe to the channel, and drop in the comments below if you've ever wanted to live a semi-retirement life abroad and what country you would want to live in. Also, I want you to follow me on Instagram, where I post a lot of financial content about living my best life. So let's continue on to the passive income section. So when I took a hard analysis of all of my finances, what I noticed was that about 50% of my income went to mandatory bills, things like a mortgage, insurance, food, things that I had to pay. And then the other 50% went to discretionary spending on activities and leisure. So I started to think to myself that if I can create passive income that's 50% of the income that I'm earning, then that puts me in a very flexible position, because all of my hard bills that I had to cover regardless would be covered, and then my life would become much more open to the early retirement plan. So thus far, I have created $11,000 a year in passive income in my portfolio, and this isn't included in any rental income I get from a rental property. So what I plan on doing in the early retirement plan is growing this passive income methodically every single year from $11,000 until it reaches 50% of my total income. Once again, I'll repeat this again. This isn't the most tax efficient way, because when you have passive income that's being paid to you today, you're going to have to pay ordinary income tax on it, which is the highest tax that you pay. And that's the trade-off when you're doing this. But for me, in living a lifestyle abroad and doing something that I love to do while still doing financial planning, to me, the trade-off is well worth it, because it makes me much more motivated in my portfolio. When you look at the statistics, most people are underfunded for their retirement anyway. They don't have enough 401k. They don't have enough savings for the future. So if I'm looking at Americans that are underfunded for their retirement, that lets me know that part of the problem is they might not make enough money, and that could be the case. But a big problem is they're just not motivated to save, because it seems so far away and they feel like they're sacrificing now. So striking that balance between saving for tomorrow and having a life for today was key to me to stay motivated and stay disciplined in my financial plan. So when you really break out the portfolio math, you don't want to drive all the passive income for today, because that would be a disaster if you're not saving for the future. But you can strike that balance and have growth in the portfolio while also sprinkling in some passive income when you're using alternative assets like private credit, BDCs, REITs that are available on the public stock market that pay you passive income. Now, if you don't know what a BDC or a REIT is, make sure you check out my video that I created where how I created 4 passive income streams within 30 days. I'll tag that in the comments below. I go through an entire video that breaks these asset classes down, but this approach towards portfolio management is fundamentally different from the 4% withdrawal rule. So in traditional financial planning, the idea is that you're going to maximize growth in the most tax efficient way. And then at the end of the finish line, you're going to draw from the portfolio 4% a year at a time so you don't outlive your money. What I did is I took this approach and I stole it from college endowments. If you're not familiar with what an endowment is, it's just a college portfolio that's really big and it's designed to pay income today and also grow and last in perpetuity. And how they do that is they use a variety of different asset classes versus only investing in stocks and bonds, which is what you do in your retirement account. Now, endowments have a different set of resources and money than a normal everyday person, but you can still take the overall concept and then apply it to your life and how you can create your goals for today and tomorrow, just like a college endowment would do. A financial plan that is surrounding living abroad and retiring early means nothing if you don't have your locations down and understand the taxes that you can potentially pay in these countries. So what I created is what I call the axis of freedom. And the axis of freedom is Colombia, Panama, and Costa Rica, living in these countries 3 months each at a time, and then 3 months out in the United States, which equals 12 months. Now, this is a legally structured calendar that's built around the fact that you don't want to stay in any type of country too long, because that can then trigger a tax residency in these countries where you owe taxes both in the United States and living abroad in these countries. They each are US dollar friendly. They're American visa friendly, getting a plain side visa where you can stay there for 90 days. And this rotation keeps you legally clear while maximizing the lifestyle that you can live in each one of these countries. Of course, this is never tax advice either. Laws change all the time in these different countries, so you always want to make sure you're up on the different visa and tax laws to make sure you're within compliance. But I'm looking at the early retirement situation. All of it means nothing if I'm still going to continue to work 8 to 12 hour days and just go to a different country to continue grinding. So I need systems that are put into place where I can only work 4 to 6 hours and still remain highly productive. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that I'm focusing on developing more and more AI skills. And what I want to use these AI skills to do is to be able to condense my workday and still be highly productive, if not more productive. So when I sat down and thought about this, I created a 3-step system that allows for the partial retirement by doing less and creating more. So in this system, let me break this down for you. What you want to start off doing is listing every individual task that you perform. I did this for myself, and you want to be very specific. You're not listing categories of tasks, you're listing specific things that you do. So for me as a financial planner, one thing that I do is I build a lot of PowerPoint presentations. I go through a lot of Excel documents, analyzing investments. And then once you make that list out, you want to take it directly to AI and ask it to identify systems, templates, and automations that can be created that makes you more efficient and then replaces manual time. You can design a much more efficient workday and efficiency upgrades in how you're going about things by creating these systems. Every single really well-run business is nothing but a collection of systems. So that when you build systems and you implement these systems and start to automate your workday and automate repeatable work, it shortens shortens your workday, and then makes your output more efficient and makes your output more higher on a shortened workday. Now, these same exact AI skills that are going to condense my workday are the same exact high value AI skills that are going to increase my income in the new economy, because businesses pay higher for people that can create systems. When you're first starting your career, you're just a doer, you do tasks. But as you move higher and higher, you need to be able to build systems, and that's where you unlock the big bucks, and that's where the big bucks are in what I see as the future economy. So investing in these skills early, investing money and resources and understanding how these skills work are a key component to an early retirement system, to working a shorter day and earning a higher income. This is not an overnight thing that you're just going to create in 1 month. But if I had to go back and start all the way over from scratch, the first thing that I would do is understanding my fixed monthly expenses and then multiplying those expenses by 6 so that I can know what my 50% passive income baseline is. This gives me a target to work towards where I have a set defined number and a North Star to start with. Once you start building that passive income, I noticed that I started getting a lot of momentum, and then you start building and building on top of that, and getting to the 50% mark is key because it's going to open up my life tremendously. Now, if you notice on my YouTube page, I don't really talk about conventional financial topics like saving your retirement and, you're going to retire at age 65 and be happy. I created this YouTube channel to give viewers creative thought on how you can begin to rethink the possibilities of wealth and how you can build a portfolio. Now, that goes without saying that you should always seek professional advice if you don't know what you're doing. Trust me on this one. Making drastic shifts like these and portfolio shifts do have a long-term impact on your future, and you don't want to be the guy that's just doing something and then notices 10 years later that you ruined your financial life. That would be an absolute disaster. That's just like me. I don't commit medical surgeries on myself because I'm not a doctor. I go to WebMD, I look up information, I educate myself, and then I seek professional help if it's something that is above my capabilities. Now, if you want a budgeting template, it's the same budgeting template that I use to get a hold of my finances. What you can do is visit my website that's going to be linked in the description and download my 7-figure budgeting template. And now that you've learned my early retirement plan and you have the budgeting template, what I want you to do is check out my next video on how I paid for my entire vacation to Cartagena, Colombia with passive income dividends.